and welcome back to DMG. I assume you're here to see the video card that was in the title. Yeah, because today we're going to be talking about a low-end AMD card, and of course last video we will have talked about a very low-end NVIDIA card. Here it is, the FirePro 2270. But this one's a bit special because it's PCIe X1, so you can fit it in a lot of slots that, other graphics cards, like literally every other one on the market, would not fit in. So that's its appeal, but I don't care about that. Can it actually do any like gaming or rendering? So we're going to find that out, but first I'm going to go over the specs. So comparing with the card from last video, just apples to oranges. They're pretty similar in the sense that, considering if you put an apple or an orange in a PCIe slot, neither would go well. However, hopefully this graphics card won't be as bad as that joke was. This card has 80 cores, 8 TMUs, and 4 ROPs, so that's 4 more texture mapping units than the NVIDIA card had. It's also clocked at 600 MHz by default, but I'm going to try and overclock it a little bit. That's 600 MHz on the memory and core, and it actually uses GDDR3 memory instead of just regular DDR2 like the NVIDIA card did, so perhaps that'll be a bit better. Yeah. It's got a big passive cooler, but it's a much better passive cooler than the NVIDIA card has. It has a lot of fins, and it will probably keep this card below 80 degrees at idle, unlike the NVIDIA card. So yeah. Oh, before benchmarks, I should talk about the I/O, DMS59, and that's all you get. I unboxed this card, brand new. I actually bought it sealed from Sapphire a while ago. It's called like unboxing and installing a PCIe X1 graphics card, if you want to go look at that video. But yeah, without any further ado, let's put it in the computer and run some tests. Alright, here we are with the FirePro 2270 X1. Now, first, before I try some games, I actually want to try overclocking the card. So I'm going to pull up MSI Afterburner. Reason being, these low-end cards are often actually really good overclockers. So I'm just going to go ahead and dial in 700 MHz on the core and another 700 on the memory. And I bet it's going to be stable when I hit apply. Alright. Didn't immediately crash, it just flickered, which is expected. So I'm going to open up GPU-Z and also do a quick run of FirePro. Also, here are the GPU specs if you are interested in this. It actually has GDDR3 instead of just regular DDR3, so for what that's worth, it actually has decent memory bandwidth for such a low-end card. Just going to do a quick 720p run. I'm sorry that I'm having to film the monitor like this, but even when CPU encoding on OBS, it still uses almost 80% of the GPU just to CPU encode in OBS on these low-end GPUs, as I said last video. So I'm just recording off of the monitor. All of the tests conducted today will be at 1366 by 768 or 720p, just 1280 by 720, depending on what the program supports. Because honestly, this card can't handle 1080p. I tried it earlier at 1080p, a couple of these cards, and they're definitely not up to the task. But it looks like our FirePro run has been stable. And also this card runs very cool. It's only at 44 degrees, which is really, really low for a passive card. But let's remember that the maximum power draw for this card, I'm pretty sure, is 15 watts. Because it goes in a X1 slot. So, you know, that super low power draw does limit how much we can overclock it. However, it does mean it runs extremely cool. Alright, let's go ahead and try some games because we know that it runs stably. I don't know why this window is stuck on top of it. Oh wow, that's actually not half bad. There's a lot of input lag, but the frame rate isn't bad. Let me turn on frame rate counter and invincibility because I'll probably die. Whoop. I'll turn down the volume a bit too. But I mean, 20 FPS is perfectly playable for this game. 20 FPS looks no different from like 60 in this game because it's quite basic. Again though, the input lag is the biggest issue. Like, it's probably a good 50 milliseconds between me moving the mouse and it responding. Of course, you're not supposed to use the mouse on the screen, but that's not the issue. It's tracking just fine. So you can see the huge delay between me moving it and the character in-game moving. That was another issue we saw with the 9300 GE. And from what I've heard, a lot of low-end cards suffer from this same issue. Alright, let's try the Lego one and see if it has the same issue. Of course our GPU load was 100%. It was not using a lot of memory. Yeah, it was clocked up to 700. And I feel scammed. The memory was clocked 1.4 megahertz lower than what I dialed in. It says fan speed, but it's a passive card, of course. That's just what the fan would be running at. This one, yeah, this one isn't, the frame rate counter is broken, and if I were to open up, like, any third-party program to monitor frame rate, it would actually put too much load on the GPU, so our figures wouldn't accurately represent. However, this definitely looks like the high 20s to mid 30s range to me. We still do have the input lag problem, but not as much. Let me get to an area where I can safely stand and not die to something like this. Okay. So we have input lag still, but it is nowhere near as severe. I actually did not know until now that you could jump onto that island and get back. I just put that there for decoration when I made this game like 3 years ago. Okay, here we go. So, let's see what else. So far it's handled the small games okay, but we're gonna throw something a bit more intensive at it. Also, I'm sorry this monitor is so beat up. It's like the only one I could find that was native 1366 by 768. We're gonna do this. Because, yeah. Of course I can't play this song. The FPS figure is obviously not correct. So, that's obviously not correct either. Windows has an issue reading GPU usage metrics from older cards, and I have no idea why that is. Hardware Info and GPU-Z pick it up fine, but Windows won't, so it looks like Xbox Game Bar won't either. Wow. Okay, I was about to say it's not half bad, and then we got that, like, half a second frame drop. I'm gonna close chat because I don't like 7-year-olds. Alright, let's go. 750 megahertz! No issue. What about 800? Watch it just like... Oh, 780 is the max. Yeah, let's max out this card. Alright. Again, as I said, also I have official overclocking limits disabled, so I can overclock it as far as MSI Afterburner will let me, not just within AMD's limits. But as I said, these cards overclock really well, the really low-end cards, because, you know, this die was not made specifically for the FirePro 2270. It was a nicer FirePro that was just too bad to be in a nicer FirePro. But that means you can still get it to clock speeds close to what that nicer FirePro would have achieved. I think this is the same GPU, just based on age, used in some of the early, like, R7 cards, like R5, R7. No, it still would have been Radeon HD era, probably, because it's 2011. So that's what, like, Radeon HD 5, like 6000, 7000 series, maybe? Okay, good, perfect, tornado. So we've got things moving around and particle effects. So that, it's, okay, we're seeing the input lag issue, but overall it's not awful. So when I look at the tornado, it gets a bit lower frame rate. Alright, let's step it up a slightly higher notch. Minecraft. It'll probably run fine, but there's no way to tell until we have tried. Alright, here we go. So, oh, that is input lag galore. So I have it, like, with the more advanced shaders disabled and, what's it called, smooth lighting? Yeah, I have smooth lighting disabled. Let me see if I can get the camera a bit more level. Yeah, so, like, good shaders are disabled. And it's still pretty laggy. I've got it on 5 chunk. What could I turn it up to? What if we crank it up to 76? And maybe turn up the anti-aliasing a bit? I just want to see, like, the best this graphics card can handle. It's starting to lag in the menu. Oh yeah. Minecraft is mostly CPU bound when it comes to higher render distances. However, all of the lag we're seeing here is from the GPU. Again, I've got a 16-thread CPU in here, so that's not our issue. I think realistically, though, if you had this card, you could probably play it on like 12 chunk. I think next we're going to try some Unreal Tournament 2004. I have it absolutely maxed out, but it actually ran worse on the 9300 GE that I tested last video than my GeForce 6800 from, when was that? I think 2004, actually. It came out at the same time as this game. So, yeah. Hopefully this will do better than a GPU that's 5 years older than it. And I believe this is using DirectX 9 to render. Now, Bridge of Fate is a slightly more demanding map than my usual one that I play. It has a lot more lighting. There's a place with water. It's right here, actually. And it's got water reflections. And, I mean, it seems to be running the game fine. Also, the Dell keyboard I'm using, the symbol for number lock is a 9. Oh no! What happened there? Did the game just, like, hang? It did. Okay, that was very strange. Yo! That was kind of cool. For a second I thought my overclock had crashed, but it still seems stable. Also, sorry if the audio is even less good than normal. I'm sitting in a very awkward position from the camera. It's definitely not where I should be. It did it again. It just froze. I don't think this is an issue with the overclock. I think the card is just having a lot of trouble with the game. Because again, this didn't happen in any other game. I'm adding a new game to my test suite, that being BeamNG.drive, which I believe is DX11 compatible. I'm going to see if it is in just a second, I suppose. But yes, I bought this game. So, you know, I'm going to use it. Here we go. So it at least launched. It's a black screen, but it at least launched. Is it my hard drive? Oh, yeah. It's just the hard drive. Yeah, okay, now it seems to be running fine. Well, I just thought, actually, the system memory, which is DDR3 1333, aka it's clocked at 666 megahertz, I think, in this computer, is clocked actually higher than the stock clocks of the memory on this GPU. So, if it starts backing up into system memory, it won't slow it down too much, because it's about the same speed. Oh, I mean, it's running, just not very well. I would call this completely unplayable, personally. Okay, stop before I fall off the cliff. So yeah, it looks like the graphics options it automatically, magically picked for me were not very good for this card. How about I turn off everything? We're going to set it to the lowest preset. So on the lowest preset, we're getting like probably 10 FPS instead of 1. It's still, I mean, this is not a very enjoyable experience. However, the graphics card is indeed drawing the lines, so I can give it that. And also, you don't get the annoying whiny fan noise of a regular passive GPU, or sorry, of a regular small GPU, because this one is passive. Let's see how it does with, like, the physics. Okay, when you start driving fast, it starts becoming a bit unplayable. Tire jump scare. Alright, so the physics don't seem to trip it up too much. It's stuttering just as much as, in the rest of the game. I'm not even touching the keyboard, the car is just falling. Yeah, okay. I think once the mesh of the car starts getting altered too much with the destruction physics, the car starts to struggle even more. So that's contrary to what I had just said. Because, of course, it has to alter what it thinks the car model looks like, which, of course, takes quite a lot of time. I have a feeling if someone modded this card to have like 2 gigs of GDDR5, it would actually be an okay GPU. It's just the very slow and a very low amount of VRAM that's really holding it back. Alright, here we go. So we're on the lowest graphics preset. A crappy DX11 graphics card is so much better than a crappy DX10 graphics card, because, you can at least load a lot more stuff. Granted, it looks and runs like this. Oh! Yo, I'm the... Oh, those snow particle effects probably aren't helping it at all. It's like... It's not even winter yet. Like, it's not even cold. Where are these snow particle effects coming from? Alright, so it's not a very playable experience, personally, I'd say. In fact, I might go as far as to call it unplayable. Alright, CSGO time. I'm using these settings, and I'm gonna play a game. Now, of course, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. Usually I'd put this in the conclusion part, but I'm gonna go ahead and say this while it's loading. Don't buy this GPU for gaming. Of course, that's not what it's made for. That's not what it's good at. Its application is, of course, systems with only a PCIe X1 slot. And it can fit in very compact spaces because it's such a small card and it's passive and it consumes very little power. If you're looking for a low-profile or just low-budget gaming card, buy a Quadro K620. They're about the same price, actually. These cards are pretty expensive when it comes to bad graphics cards. They're like 25 bucks because they're such a niche application and there aren't many competitors. Oh, that's not very good. That's not very good at all. Okay, I just turned down the shadows even further. Hopefully that will help it a bit. Or will it just crash on me like CSGO often does? We may never find out. Actually, we will find out, and it's looking like it will just crash on me, because the GPU load has dropped all the way to 0, and our VRAM usage has dropped. Will it? Will it, possibly? It might actually. Yep, here we go. Okay, it looks awful. I think F11 opens a debug menu. Look at that render latency! 100 millisecond render latency. Dude. Okay. Okay. Let's see what we can do about this. Ooh, fidelity effects super resolution. Performance. Yes, we want all the FSR. Oh. So that won't run. It just crashed. Wow. Actually, that's not half bad. Wow, that's not very bad. Like, of course it's not playable. Well, actually, I wouldn't call it unplayable. It's not pleasant. I'll just say that. Wow. This is not too awful. Again, for a not super fast-paced game like Subnautica, this is an acceptable frame rate. It's just when you're above the water that issues start to arise. I'll just go in this hole. Okay, yeah, so that particle effect really causes issues. But the lighting in this cave actually doesn't cause too much lag. Like, it's really only when turning. And of course we get the issue with the input lag. Next, I'm going to try BioShock. Now this is quite an old game, so I expect it to run okay. Or not at all. That's also an option. I hear audio, so I know it's running, but we're not getting an image. So I suppose it's just not going to run at all for us. Well, I did not catch it when it happened, but as soon as I opened Fortnite, it just crashed. Which, honestly, it spares me from having to play the game, so is it really that bad? But, I mean, wow, not even the hard reset switch was working. Come on, hopefully. So I have a feeling that had to do with our 180 megahertz overclock. Looks like it still works fine. Oh, that's not very good. I don't even need to open an FPS monitor to know that this is very little. This is incredibly low. Completely unplayable. And I have it on the Performance API, so I know that DirectX 11 would not look any better. Well, it would look better, but it would run a lot worse. Look at that bush. Look at that bush. The bush looks like that, and it still doesn't run properly. Can this guy hold off on shooting me? I'm trying to do a GPU benchmark. Chill. Wow, he's really bad. Can't even kill me when I'm just like running. Wow. Get better. I'm just gonna run until that guy is like no longer behind me. It keeps glitching and doing that with the sky. Yeah, it's all these weird texture issues. Yeah, it's definitely not a playable experience, I will say. Is this guy still chasing me? He's not. Okay. Now my only enemy is the FPS. And oh, what a formidable enemy it is. I've healed, and I am going to go kill someone like the Fortnite professional I am. This pig thing. Yes. Hello, pig thing. Wow, that went well. It's pretty irresponsible just leaving weapons around a construction site. That does not seem very safe at all. Okay, that's the worst possible 3D resolution, 35%. And I swear it's running even worse now. There's a guy over here. Bet that I'm going to immediately die. I see someone. Yeah, I'm so good. Look at that, I'm so good. So yeah, this graphics card is completely unusable, and that's pretty much it. Now, if all you do is just like, you know, Microsoft Word and watching some videos, it's, of course, decent. But as I said earlier, its application is computers where you don't have space for a 16x graphics card and don't want a loud one. But that is it for this video. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm going to test a slightly more capable Radeon card in the next video that's very cheap, so stay tuned if you're interested in GPU benchmarks. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you everyone for watching, and see you next time.